come once again to discuss things.
Yeah, like just, you want to watch, you just get this feeling like, oh man, I want to watch Spider-Man, I want to watch, for me, I'm in Zorro Spider-Man mode right now. So I think that'll be a fun mini, so we don't waste the recording opportunity.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, anyway, hey everyone, welcome to a mini-sode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2, joining me today is Mr. Steve Baxi.
Hello everybody.
So, Steve, this is a topic that I just came up with off the top of my head because we're waiting on Milan. Milan's ass didn't show up. Fuck you, Milan. That's a little harsh.
No edits, no censoring whatsoever. That's the
Yeah, no censoring. Dicks and pussy and farts.
We're like HBO, but free.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like HBO. No one in their right mind pays for HBO. You just go out to the box, you do a little wiring. Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about something that just kind of's been floating around in the back of my head for a while as a topic, and I finally decided to just pick it out here because we didn't want to waste the recording opportunity. So we're gonna talk about getting in a mood. And Steve, I think I'm gonna like have the intro music to this episode be like some funky guitar or something because it sounds really pornographic, right?
It really does.
No, but it's just one of those things that I think everyone kind of goes through that where you just like, I want to watch some Spider-Man or I want to read some X-Men comics or whatever. You just like, you get in a mood where you really get into a character or a universe or a property or whatever it is. And I don't know, I think there's something interesting there to discuss. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think the principle of it is it's never just one thing. If someone says, do you want to watch Star Wars? It's never just one Star Wars movie. It's always something else, and it doesn't even have to be something that you can see yet. Like, I'm really, really hyped for Episode 7 right now. Like that's one of the only things I'm thinking about. So all I'm doing lately is reading lots of Star Wars comics and watching Star Wars, the Clone Wars, and mainly the Andy Tartakovsky 2003 2D stuff. And I think a lot of people have this where there's this unquenchable drive to just watch something, and I don't know, maybe it's just because partly I'm a completist, so I don't want to watch one thing, I want to get everything out of it as much as possible.
Yeah, I have that too, where I really just throw myself into it. Like, Haley and my mom make fun of me because I go from property to property, and it's primarily superheroes, because, I mean, there's so fucking many of them. I just jump from property to property and throw myself way the hell into it.
Yeah, to the verge of being obsessed for a really short period of time.
Yeah, it's just where you just read everything you can get your grubby little hands on. And then it's like the thing that's most frustrating about it is you usually eventually like hit a wall where, oh, you can't find that, or oh, that's not available to you. And that's the worst feeling ever.
Oh, I know, it just kills you. I had this over the summer when I was reading like 200 comics of Iron Man straight through, and I just became this obsessive Iron Man fan for a little while. And I got to this point where there was no more trades. Basically, after the first half of Dennis O'Neill's run, there are no more trades. You have to either sporadically find the issues or get them all digitally somehow.
That's harsh.
Just wait until more trades get printed. And I couldn't handle it. So I went out on Amazon and eBay and I bought all the Dennis O'Neill issues.
Wow. Ouch.
Yeah. It didn't cost
and I think that's one of the problems with like online retailing to satisfy this is it doesn't. Even though you have it, like you own it now, it's still on its way, so it doesn't satisfy that immediate, like, you know, give it to me right now. Because like I think you get that. The only thing I can think of to compare it to is when you're really hungry for a specific thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you want a Big Mac. You don't want a Whopper. You don't want a burger from a much nicer restaurant. You want a Big Mac. You know it's bad for you, but you just want that specific thing and you want it now.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with waiting for something to get there, it's almost like you were told all morning that for dinner you were going to have a very specific dish. It turns out you're at dinner and it's something else. And you have to wait 2 days to get what you actually want. And for some reason, everything just starts to taste a little bit different until you get there. You're looking at everything through that one really particular lens.
Yeah, and it's so weird because I feel like when you get into a mood for something, or at least with me, I feel it very fundamentally affects how I don't want to say look at, but how I view other things in certain ways. Like, we did the Marvel video that that'll be up before this episode is. We did the Marvel Universe Headcanon video, and we talked about Daredevil in that, and I'm still on my Zorro kick from that. I'm kind of jumping around on between Spider-Man, Zorro, and Star Trek right now.
That's a good combo, by the way.
Yeah, not bad. Kind of just getting a little bit of everything. Like, in that, we talked about Daredevil, and I said, Daredevil actually feels like you could kind of have a bit of a Zorro-like role to me, because, you have to straddle that line between between Punisher and Spider-Man, so it kind of makes sense for Daredevil to do things to, like, kind of embarrass Kingpin or make, crooks look stupid, as well as be kind of really violent. So you don't get, like, the quick, smart mouth stuff you do with Spider-Man, but you still get, like, a bit of a lighthearted thing than you do with Punisher. And that's because I've been watching so much Zorro, and reading so much Zorro, and, like, that's just what's in my head. And I look at Daredevil, and his character I don't know a ton about, but I can actually see that working for that character, too, Yeah,
I know what you mean. Because I've always been a big fan of the MCU Iron Man movies. 2 is awful, but I still like watching it because it's at least kind of fun. And after embracing all of those Iron Man comics, I really can't watch them anymore. Not because they're bad, but because they're not Iron Man. And then at the same time, I look at other things. Like right now, I've got that Star Wars mood, and I'm supposed to be finishing Deep Space Nine so I can talk about it on a video with Cap. But I don't want to. I don't want to watch it at all because it's not Star Wars, and I keep wanting Star Trek to be about two very opposing groups and finding a middle ground between those philosophies. And Star Trek's not about that.
No, it's just about the Enterprise or the Federation's philosophy is always correct.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's really frustrating, especially when, like, you're in Trek, TOS, and they're just, like, complete hypocrites. That's when it's most frustrating to be lectured to by a hypocrite. But anyway, yeah, like, I get that feeling of just, like, you immerse yourself in something. I don't know what exactly causes that. It's such a weird thing, because I do it constantly. I'm like, you know what, I'm f***ing into this right now. This is my thing for the next 6 months.
Yeah, and I mean, people are going to jump and say it's maybe a side effect of binge watching, but I don't think it is at all, because I've been like this since I was a kid.
Yeah, like, you gotta realize for me, geekdom's a thing that came on fairly late, and thank God it did, because otherwise I'd probably be in jail or something. Because the only other thing that I was, like, into as much as I am a geek now was, like, anarchism when I was in high school, so, like, that could have gone in a completely different path. But anyway, like, I remember getting into a Star Wars kick. Like, it was the very first time I really got into Star Wars when I was, like, 16 or 17. And it was shortly after the first Force Unleashed game came out. So I played that, and then I watched all the movies again, and then I started looking into some of the, extended universe stuff online, and I just remember one time spending a couple days just looking at, or not days, like, not 24-hour days, but, like, I remember when I'd get bored, I'd just go on Google Images and look up pictures of, Sith and Jedi fighting and, like, fan art and stuff.
Right.
And so that was before I had Netflix or had really even binge-watched anything other than, Justice League.
Yeah.
And so it's such a weird thing that you just feel yourself pulled into something. I don't know why.
Do you find yourself at this point when you want to get into something new, like you've never, say for example, you've never ever read any Captain America, do you find yourself having to force yourself to get into that mood at all? Can you just pick up a Captain America book and try it? Or do you have to, like, make it an acquired taste before you start reading?
Oh, I mean, that's pretty much what I did with Star Trek. Star Trek's just a property that I'd heard so many people talk about, with all this reverence and hearing, like, I think the thing that finally made me decide to sit down and watch Star Trek was, a tweet that Alex put out where it was something to the effect of, if you were to rate sci-fi shows by their depictions of the future, Star Trek would score highly. And I disagree with that now, but, like, I saw that, and I'd heard Cap talk about Star Trek for years, and it always kind of meant to get into some of it, like to watch it casually, or you know, watch the good Star Trek, which I wish I'd done now. And, like, ultimately, I just heard so many people talk about it with such reverence that I'm like, okay, I'm going to get into it. And then I start watching, I'm like, ouch, this is really bad. But, I mean, all shows start out kind of bad. I mean, I didn't love Doctor Who the first time I started watching that either. So I muscled through it until I finally got to a good episode. And once I did, then I was able to see what people were really enjoying about it. And I'd assumed that there was going to be more of that coming, and there's some. Like, it's got, like, I just did a video with Alex, and this will be up after that video anyway, so I'll say this. Where, like, my ultimate, so far, having watched all of TOS and the TOS movies, as well as all of TNG and the first TNG movie generations, I think Star Trek can basically be summarized as 1/3 of it is, like, really good. Another third of it is okay, enjoyable, fun. And then another third of it is just awful.
I think you summarized my favorite Star Trek quote ever, which is in a episode of Futurama where they have the Star Trek crossover, and Fry says, Star Trek, about 80 original episodes, about 30 good ones.
Yep, pretty much. That is the best way to summarize it. But I'm talking about the entire franchise, and so, like, that's what I did with Star Trek, and I'm still planning to go through it because I at this point I'm just committed. Enterprise might break me though. No, so, like, at this point I'm just committed to it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get through it all, but I did have that, or I'm like, okay, something has got me to the point where I want to watch this. Now let's see if I can get myself in a mood to watch it. And now, after watching so much Star Trek, 7 seasons of Next Generation, I'm like, okay, finally, let's go back to Zorro for a while. I need something that's, like, definitely not Star Trek.
Yeah, because I think this is a good place to throw this in there. There are definitely those times where you need, like, a mood breaker. Like, before the debate, I was reading tons and tons and tons of Batman at once, to try and get back into a Batman mood. And after I read Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, I had such a weird, visceral, emotional reaction to it. I had like 6 hours left before I was going to bed, and I didn't want to read more Batman because that book kind of broke me. So I needed something like Casanova Luxuria to kind of pull my brain out of it.
Yeah. Whatever Happened to Cape Crusader is by far my favorite Batman story. It's so beautiful.
It's one of the best.
Yeah, it's amazing. Neil Gaiman, man. Neil fucking Gaiman, man. No, but, like, yeah, I went through a Batman mood at one point, and that's where I bought all the trades, and then, like, it's through Batman that I know so much about the DC universe, because, like, especially early 2000s, Batman was all over the DC universe, not like the way he is now, where he's, like, completely taking over a lot of other people's books.
He's basically the star of the Justice League book at this point.
Yeah, but, like, in the early 2000s, he was just kind of around everywhere. He just would show up in all these different places, or all these other characters would show up in his universe, and I'd learn about them through Batman. And so it's just that's just how I got into DC as big as I did, and, like, I think that's probably why I've never been a huge Marvel guy. Like, I have my other reasons, but I've never really gotten into a really strong mood for a Marvel character. I'm on a bit of a Spider-Man kick, which is why we did that MCU video, and I did a couple Spider-Man trades on my comic review show, and Bill recommended one to me that I'm going to try to keep an eye out for. But, like, I read enough of it now that I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it's not exactly what I'd hoped for. So I think I'm okay. I'm going to probably watch through Spectacular Spider-Man since I just bought that, though.
Yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man I think is the best Spider-Man thing ever, but I'm not really a big Spider-Man guy, so
yeah,
take my opinion for that necessarily.
I don't know, like, I was talking with Bill about it, and it's funny because, like, the problem I have with Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is that the storytelling is really good, the animation's pretty bad, and, like, I watched the first 3 episodes of Spectacular Spider-Man, and I'm like, the story so far is okay. God, the animation is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Earth's Mightiest Heroes and Spectacular Spider-Man have bad animation for the same reason of they need to make the action look dynamic, and they can only do that with simplistic art.
Really? Because, like, the funny thing is, Ultimate Spider-Man has fantastic animation and action, but the storytelling is god-awful.
See, I haven't watched enough of that show to know. I watched, like, 5 episodes and thought this was garbage, so I didn't
Oh, it's pretty fucking bad, but it has its gems.
Okay, that makes sense. I remember there was a Deadpool episode that people talked about being good, but never watched it.
It was kind of fun just because, like, Spider-Man, like, my nickname for Ultimate Spider-Man is Spider-Man's New Groove. Because they do the exact same thing. So with Spider-Man constantly breaking the fourth wall, and then you have Deadpool come in and interrupt him, that's hilarious.
That is fun.
But, but, no, it's, like, just, there are a lot of little things in that show that I just love. Like, Peter Parker, every time they've ever gone on a field trip, Peter Parker manages to get bit by something. Even if they're at a place where you should never where an animal isn't even around, Peter Parker manages to get bit by an animal.
That's awesome.
I love that. That's hilarious. It should be a part of all Spider-Man things from now on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just, like, it's great because they do that cutaway kind of Family Guy style humor, which works and doesn't work depending on the property. But they do that, it's like, man, it was a good thing that Goat didn't turn out to be radioactive. It's just Goat Boy. So, a lot of silly stuff like that is really fun. But no, it's a really bad show otherwise.
That and Hulk Agents of Smash is equally awful.
Oh, I'm not even gonna give that the time of day.
It's
just the name alone is stupid.
It's like a reality show with Hulks. It's so bad.
Oh God, no. Why?
Anyway,
no, like with that sense of, you know, you can get into a mood, but you can quickly wear yourself out of it too, though, right?
Yeah, and I think part of it is just keeping with consistent quality. Because I remember I was in a really high what was it? I remember now. Okay, I was in a really high Hellblazer mood, and I was reading everything Hellblazer. I just read through all of Garth Ennis's run, which is one of the greatest works of literature ever. And then you get the new guy. Then you get the new run, which is written by I can't remember names today. I'm not sure why I'm bad at that right now. It's written by Paul Jenkins. There we go, Paul Jenkins. And it's just
that doesn't sound like a real name.
it's just so awful, and I couldn't get past like one issue a day. It was so bad, and I don't read Hellblazer at all anymore.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens. You just I just did that Zorro video that I posted today as we're recording it, and it's going to be a couple weeks ago by the time this episode's posted. But like, it was so weird. There was this really great episode of the Disney Zorro show that, like, oh my God, Steve, it felt like watching The Dark Knight. Like, it had a lot of the same plot points. Like, I thought that was really funny. Like, basically, it was such a good episode, one of the best episodes of the show. Basically, Zorro is offered amnesty. If he turns himself in, then they'll wipe away all his crimes, take the price off his head, blah, blah, blah. And so Diego goes around and he's like, everyone's talking about whether or not Zorro will turn himself in. So he's talking with his father about it. His father's like, no, Zorro's not the kind of man that would turn himself in. Even if meant his own personal safety. He's not the kind of man that would do that because he knows the safety of California is more important. And he talks to this girl that he really likes, and she's like, oh, Zorro will turn himself in. That way he and I can get married and we can be happy forever. And he talks to everyone and stuff. And then, as Diego's, debating with it, he gets kidnapped by some guy, and he ends up, breaking out of his shackles and everything, and he fights the guy and takes off the dude's mask, and it's his father. He's like, how long have you known? It was such a good episode.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then the next episode is the episode I made the video on, wherein Diego tells an escaped slave to go back to his master. And I was like, oh, fuck, ow, my heart, ow. Ow! It was so, of course there's the context of not only the time that it's set in, but the time that it was made in, and I get that, and it's one bad episode in a really great series, because the next episode there's essentially, an old-timey lightsaber fight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they fight with red-hot irons that are smoking, so it is essentially a lightsaber duel.
Cool.
Yeah, and so, it quickly redeemed itself, but, oh my god, I had to stop watching after that episode because I was just so offended.
Well, see, my examples are not that dramatic. I was on a really big Rurouni Kenshin kick because how great the Kyoto arc is. And then there's an episode all about Karu wanting to marry Kenshin, and it's just fucking awful.
Oh, is that the one where they're at the inn?
No, it's not that one. It's the one where the engagement ring gets stuck to a fish.
No, I did not watch this episode. That's weird.
Oh, okay. It's episode 70, I think. No, it's probably before that, because it's right at the end of the Kyoto arc. But it's just really, really bad, and it's such a huge step down in quality that I haven't watched the show for a good few days at this point.
I think the show gets better. It doesn't get better after the Kyoto arc, but I think the show's quality-wise, before and after Kyoto, is a big difference. It's got some good episodes before they go to Kyoto.
Yeah.
And then it's got some good episodes after the Kyoto arc, but
it's never as good as the Kyoto arc.
Yeah, it's never as good after that, but I think the quality is fairly consistent after that, though Misao's fucking annoying as hell.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I hate her.
Yeah, my fan fiction, or no, not fan fiction. This is secret stuff that I've gotten personally from sources within the production of the new Star Wars movie.
Okay.
All right, so Yahiko and Misao secretly get married and have children, and they're just have a shitload of children. Every time they have kids, it's triplets, and those kids are the most annoying, stupid fucks on the planet, and they inbreed for generations upon generations, just constantly inbreeding with each other, producing stupider and more annoying offspring as they go, till we get to the future, at which point the human race decides they can no longer deal with this family of inbreeding annoying idiots, and they collectively put all of them on a rocket and send them out into space. But through ridiculous circumstances, the rocket goes through a wormhole and is time warped to the past and lands on a swampy planet. They colonize the planet and live there for generations, slowly evolving with it until they become the Gungans.
There were so many potential payoffs for that joke, and that was the best one.
Exactly.
There was 8 different ways you could have ended that.
Thank you. I try. No, that show is. But yeah, I did get that feeling because the Kyoto arc is pretty good, and then it's not disappointing about the end, but it's definitely not as climactic as you want it to be.
Yeah, the final fight with Shishio is awful.
Yeah.
Everything up to that I really like, but that Shishio fight is just one of the most boring video game battles ever. Literally to the point where Kenshin is counting combos.
Right. No, but I think, did you watch, I think it's episode 63 with the samurai looking for the perfect technique?
Oh, I love that one, yeah.
Yeah, like that's where I think the quality of the show gets. The last story arc sucks as well, but I think the quality of the show is pretty good overall after that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's an anime where you should probably only watch a select number of episodes and not the whole thing all the way through.
Yeah, I think that'd be good for an abridged series. But anyway, like, yeah, I get that feeling too, where you're just like, oh my god, I was really loving this, and then this happened, and I'm just totally turned off for a while. It just totally drops the ball on things, and that gets really frustrating.
Yeah, and it particularly sucks when you've kind of fallen in love with something brand new. Like you've never read or seen anything with a particular character or a particular writer, and it's so good for so long until one specific arc. Like I'm reading through Knights of the Old Republic by John Jackson Miller, and that's a really good series. And you get to issues 16 through 18, which is a story arc called Knights of Anger. And given how just fantastic the arc before that was, and then you read Knights of Anger, and it's just really, really bad. It's to this place where I'm not reading that book at all anymore, and I really don't want that to happen, because I was enjoying it, and it was the best Star Wars thing I've seen for so long.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things how that slowly builds for you, where you're like, you start getting momentum, and then it might not even be that the thing you're talking about, the story arc you're talking about, is bad. It's just not the same level of quality.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't even have the tools to judge at that point, because you're building so much momentum, and then you just get this drop in quality, and it just, like, it wounds you almost, where you're like, I was loving this, and then this happened, and now I'm hurt, and I don't know if I want to continue anymore.
Yeah, Fantastic Four did that to me at a point, because Fantastic Four is a really great property. It's got some of the best comic runs out there. And then you watch that movie, and there are so many factors that could have made it brilliant. There were so many people like me who were defending it up to a point. And I was really in love with Fantastic Four for a while. I was reading so many really good comics. And then the movie comes out, and it murders everything, and it feels like you were betrayed by it.
Right. And I think that's how a lot of people felt about Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Like, because there was all that hype, and everyone was watching and rewatching the trilogy over and over again, and probably reading a bunch of the EU stuff. And then Phantom Menace comes out, and it's not only that it's not a good movie, but it's just like, this is what you made after all this time and all this anticipation.
Yeah.
This is what you paid us off with. Yeah, I really get that feeling. Like, and so when you make some, like, studios talk about, oh, if you make a bad movie, you make a bad movie, or like you hear, professionals talk about, like, yeah, we weren't proud of it, but it is what it is. You're gonna have some stinkers every so often. But when you do that with a franchise, when you don't take the care with a franchise that the fans deserve, then you really are just insulting them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always about timing, because it's one thing to have, like, 2 movies out every single year and then you make a few duds, because that's okay. At that point, you're a machine, and you can let certain things go. But you're talking about a franchise that that basically started a cultural revolution, a franchise that invented a whole era of summer blockbuster filmmaking, that reignited a spark in science fiction. It's been like 20 years since we've had a movie. You told this epic story, and you're finally revisiting it, and you haven't touched or made anything since then, and we've had all this extra canon that people were dying over in the meantime, and then Phantom Menace comes out.
Right. And, like, I think you're kind of touching on something with, like, my thoughts on Legend of Zorro, which was the sequel that's kind of, forgotten about Mask of Zorro.
Yeah.
Where, like, I call Legend of Zorro the Jedi of a potential trilogy that never happened. Because, like, you can always go through trilogies and you're like, okay, well, here's the one that's pretty good, here's the one that's amazing that everyone loves, and here's the one that's kind of like the, stepchild. It's like, yeah, there's some great stuff in it still, but it's still really problematic. I think Legend of Zorro, the problem with it isn't that it's bad, because it's not good, but it's not, like, god-awful or anything. The problem with it isn't that it's bad, it's that it's a day late and $1 short. It came out 7 years after the first movie, and we waited all that time, and then it was just kind of okay. With some really big problems in it. So then you're like, what's the point of having waited all that time anyway? And I didn't even fucking know there was a sequel, but that's the impression that I got from it. It's just, it took so long between the first movie and the second, that if Legend of Zorro had come out, say, 2 years after Mask of Zorro, and we'd seen all the problems with it and everything, then you could have potentially saved the franchise with a third movie another 2 years later that actually returned to some of the tone of the original.
Right.
Like that's the feeling I get from that, is like it would have been the Jedi of the franchise, but it came too late to make it happen.
And I hear people talk about the Hobbit films the same way, but I've never seen those, so I'm not sure.
I won't waste my time.
I'm just not the big Lord of the Rings fan anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm pretty sure you cut the Hobbit trilogy into one 3-hour movie.
I've heard that. That's partly why I don't want to watch them.
Yeah, I'd watch a fan edit. Probably watch a fan edit of Lord of the Rings too.
I've seen all of those movies one time, and that's more than enough.
Yeah. And so like it's weird when you get into a mood and then you feel betrayed by it. Now after that happens, do you find yourself like struggling to go back, or do you find yourself like thinking, okay, I'll power through this rough patch and then the good stuff will return?
That depends on how much knowledge I have of it. Because if I'm going into something blind and it betrays me, then I have no idea what I'm in for later, then it will take me a long time to get back to it. But if it's something like Hellblazer, where I've read a majority of that series already, and I know where the hills are, I know where the good parts are, then it's easier for me to force my way through it. A lot of times I make reviews of things simply because that's the only way I know I'll read something. Like, I would have no reason to sit here and read all these Star Wars comics if I wasn't going to review them. And so I make reviews just so I can force myself through it. And sure, one arc betrayed me, but I have a reason now to keep going with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it just depends on what it is and how much knowledge I have of it beforehand.
Yeah, like that's kind of what's going on with me for Star Trek, because I know that like everyone keeps praising DS9, and I'm ready for DS9 to not be as good as everyone says.
Yeah, you gotta wait till season 2, because season 1 is god awful.
Oh well, thanks. No, like everyone keeps praising DS9. I'm like, okay, here goes. And I'm like, all right, I'm sure that's gonna be probably like that's probably gonna be the best the entire series of Star Trek, the entire franchise has to offer.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's all downhill for me. But I'm gonna power through it, probably, unless it's just painful. If I'm just at the point where I cannot watch it, I have to turn away, then I will give up on it. But I'm gonna power through it because I have something else in mind. But I'm trying to think, like, do you have that where, like, you're in a mood just to be in a mood, you're not doing anything else around it, and something kind of, betrays you, but you power on anyway?
Yeah, it happens a lot with monthly comics. It's part of the reason I stopped reading monthly, because I don't like that feeling of I forgot what happened last month. But it happens a lot with monthly comics where I don't have to review them. I don't have to answer to anybody when I read them. I just read them for fun, and you get really into a book for a while, and you really enjoy it, and you live with it. I had that with Alan Moore's Miracle Man. And then you get a finale that's really, really bad. And you want to keep going with it, because you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. But there's still something about the book, there's still something about the premise, and there's still something about what made you love it in the first place that makes you feel like you're loyal to it.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's a little bit harder to describe, because there are so few things that I feel like I'm absolutely loyal to regardless of quality.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm having that a little bit with Scott Snyder's Batman, where the only reason I feel like I'm reading that book is because it's Batman. I dropped Detective because of Tony Daniel.
Yeah.
I cannot let myself not be buying a Batman book.
See, that's why you just buy it in trade.
Well, no, I don't want to buy it in trade. Like, the whole reason I started buying comics is because I wanted to be keeping up with what was going on week to week, or month to month, rather. And so I cannot let myself keep going to the comic book store if I don't have a Batman book.
That's fair.
It's just one of those things, like, even if it's god-awful, I love Batman. I just have to be with it. And not that Scott Snyder's stuff's god-awful. It's just really not for me at this point, is what I'm getting down to. Like, I think it's bad in other ways, but ultimately it's just not for me.
Yeah, like, I think the arc he's working on right now is one of his only legitimately bad arcs, but we'll see how it goes when it's over.
You talking about the Gordon stuff with Bunny Suit?
It's so weird. It's like everyone in the book had to sign a contract that said, do not ask any logical questions.
Well, like, I mean, my initial take on it is, okay, so Batman Inc., and then my next take on it was, wait, what? Because, like, I talked about that in my comic reviews with, like, Alfred has this whole speech about how Bruce Wayne's reward for being Batman is getting to come back as Bruce Wayne and not have to be Batman. I'm like, no, that's not the character at all.
Yeah.
Like, my only justification I can make for that is that's what Alfred wants to think. But then on top of that, like, immediately preceding that speech was we realized that Batman is working on a machine to essentially clone himself, and so that every time he dies, a new Bruce Wayne is born with all of Batman's memories, and this is to perpetuate Batman forever. I'm like, I'll give you that that's something that Batman would think of and plan out, kind of like the War Games situation, but he would never act on it. So the idea of him building that machine just, like, because at that point he's Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, and I mean, and Batman Return of Bruce Wayne handles the same kind of idea so much better, where Batman just designs a system in the universe where there is perpetually a Batman.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, that just hurt me so much to read that, and, like, it was a 1-2 punch of just ouch.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with writers like Scott Snyder is I can't ever make, like, a definitive judgment until I've got all the issues with me and I've reread the story arc a couple times.
Fair enough, but for me, I've really been against Scott Snyder since the beginning of his run.
Yeah, I mean, because he is, like you say, he is Morrison light. There's no way around that.
Yeah, and, like, my people on that Scott Snyder video I did, people are like, oh, you're not getting it, or, oh, that's not plagiarism, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, okay, what's he adding? And then when I look at the stuff he's adding that isn't directly copying something else, or isn't heavily reminiscent of something else, I think it's really bad. Like, Court of Owls is, of course, the Black Glove, but then when you look at what he's added that's not the Black Glove, it's Bruce Wayne's possible long-lost brother. I can't get my head around that, like, why anyone would think that's good.
I think the only big thing he's really done that's legitimately a great Batman story that's added a lot to the character is Zero Year.
Yeah, and that's the one that, like, I'm tempted to pick up and reread, because I did enjoy parts of that. Even though I do think it's really reminiscent of Rises. Not just No Man's Land, but Rises in particular, because it's a person behind the city being cut off.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you'll get in context, because the whole book is constructed like the Dark Knight trilogy, very literally and very intentionally.
Okay, that's fair. No, it's just there's a lot of stuff like that with Batman where I'm like, I cannot let myself not pick up a Batman book. And I think it's interesting to talk about in the context of comics because, you know, Manos completely dropped DC once they slapped him in the face with stuff he didn't like with Wonder Woman.
Right.
And like, I've talked with him a little bit about this, and he's like, it's not that it's not good, it's just that it's not Wonder Woman. And I still disagree with him heavily. But at the same time, like, yeah, I do get that mentality, because I've really felt like doing that with Batman. I just can't let myself.
Yeah, I mean, I buy every Batman trade that comes out every month, so I'm in no position to talk about quality over obsession. But there's a point where money does become legitimately important, and you have to choose between buying something you're not enjoying whatsoever, and seeing what else you could do with that. There's a point where the obsession I have with Batman dies out because the stories aren't good, and I'm not in the place where I can comfortably buy more Batman. And I always hate being there because I'm always in a perpetual Batman mood. It doesn't matter what happens, I can read a Batman story. But sometimes, like with New 52 stuff, it gets to this point where it's like they're going so clearly out of their way to make this character not Batman anymore, like they want me to stop reading.
It's like, fucking that Steve Baxi guy. Eventually we'll make something where he hates it.
Yeah, because the only Batman book that I was legitimately loving in the New 52 was when Francis Manapul took over Detective Comics.
Yeah?
That stuff was fucking brilliant, and everything else around has just been awful.
I don't know, man. It's crazy how that can just throw you off, because, like, it's a character you love, and you should be able to love him, but it's so weird when the direction that they're taking something in is just so counter to what, not only what you want, but what is clearly, what the character's clearly meant to be.
And I mean, and part of it is just, everybody has bad days, everybody has kind of their comfort food medium, and when that comfort food isn't good anymore, it's a really depressing experience.
Yeah, it's hard to, like, just keep slogging yourself through something awful, and it's weird because it can only really happen that way with successful characters. Like, they're not going to end Batman. Any other character had writing quality like that on, like, that of Tony Daniel on Detective Comics, that book would have been shut down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at Fantastic Four. The only reason it's canceled now is because of business crap, but that book had awful sales for decades and it wasn't getting canceled.
Yeah, because it's that property, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so crazy to think, like, first of all, it's crazy as a comic fan to think Fantastic Four has been canceled.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's so weird to try to wrap your head around those things. And then, like, with Wonder Woman in particular, it's a character that's so crazy to look at because they did that. It's so weird they did this. They renumbered her at 600 issues, and then, like, a year later, put everyone back to number 1.
Well, it was hilarious with Batman Dark Knight, where it got, like, 2 issues, and then they went back to number 1.
Well, that's because fucking David Finch couldn't get his shit together. No, but, like, you had Wonder Woman who you can go and get, like, issues from the Perez run that were in, like, the 100s, and then that went up into, I think that volume stopped at issue, like, 300 or something. That was, like, her 3rd volume. Because I believe New 52 counts as volume number 5.
That was 4.
Really? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't keep up enough with Wonder Woman to know for sure, though, so...
Yeah, it's one of those things, but, like, that's a character who's been around. Like, think about that. There was a 300-issue run. Like, what is it? 100 issues is basically 10 years, right? Yeah, give or take. And so, like, that's 30 years of a consistent run on the book. Not necessarily consistently good, but consistently coming out. And that got shut down.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. Like, a character that big could get shut down, and, like, but that's never going to happen to Batman. Like, I honestly couldn't believe that of all the books that they renumbered Batman and Action Comics.
Yeah.
When New 52 came out. I could not believe that.
I could have bought, and maybe this is neither here nor there, but I could have bought that a little bit less if they didn't spend the first year of the New 52 writing in the back of their books and on their website, Batman first appeared in Justice League number 1 in 2011.
Right.
Like, that's almost unforgivable.
Right. Oh, man. It's one of those crazy things to try to wrap your head around, like, how impermanent some of these things that seem so eternal are. Yeah. And I don't know how much that really has to do with the idea of getting into a mood for a character or property or whatever. But I think there is something to that, where it's just like, it's these things always seem to be there, and they're just waiting for you to pick them up.
Yeah, because legacy, I think, matters at a point. like, there's a different feeling when you pick up a Batman book as opposed to something like an Ed Brubaker indie thing. It's not that one's automatically good and one's automatically bad. It's just a matter of there's a connotation to this. There's a history with this. There's an entire atmosphere that goes with this character that isn't there for other things. And so the mood almost creates itself at that point.
Mm-hmm. Now let me ask you this. Do you feel like you get in a mood for a particular writer very often, or anywhere near as often as you do for a universe or a character or whatever?
Depends, because I'm usually more of a following character guy and less following a writer guy. I discover writers through characters.
Yeah.
The only people I follow and I get in legitimate moods for are Grant Morrison, Joss Whedon, and Rick Remender.
Okay. Because for me, like, I don't really have that very often. Like, I'll watch, like, if it's a gaming thing, I'll pick it up probably. Or if it's a let's say Tarantino movie, I'll definitely put that on my list to go see. But I don't watch one Tarantino movie and get in the mood to watch all his others.
Well, I think with Tarantino, his movies tend to be pretty long, so I think most people don't have that.
Okay, fair enough.
Because, I mean, I love Tarantino to death, but I will never watch, like, 3 of his movies in one day. That's a little bit too much.
Yeah, fair enough. It's just, like, I don't have that feeling to get into a, you know... Like, I like Jeff Johns, but I don't feel the need to read Green Lantern and then go and read, I don't know, Batman Earth 1. So it's weird, because I won't follow a writer or get into the mood for a writer or whatever the way I will for a character.
Because I'm always more about the bigger picture when it comes to certain stories. Like, even Grant Morrison and Joss Whedon's run on X-Men, there's still runs in X-Men, so I will be thinking about the X-Men franchise before I'm thinking about my favorite creators.
Mm-hmm.
But the big exception when it comes to writers like Joss Whedon and Grant Morrison and Rick Remender is that there is a canon to their work. That you can follow their career and you can see them evolve the same ideas. And with Grant Morrison, sometimes it's to this point where if you put everything he's ever written together, you could probably get a story out of it.
Right? Like somebody took like this one really obscure panel from, I think it was Batmite talking something Grant Morrison had written. It's like, we're in space A, and then another panel from just something completely different he'd written where another character said, and we're in space B. And they're like trying to, and someone made like this ridiculous argument. It was on Comic Fight about how this is all planned out and this is like how all these universes connect in Grant Morrison's mind. I'm like, holy shit, I actually believe this.
Well, that's what multiversity is, basically. Multiversity is everything Grant Morrison's ever written is now in the same canon.
Yeah, including all his Marvel stuff.
Pretty much.
Oh my god, I gotta read that. I can't wait.
Multiversity's fucking brilliant, but that's something we should talk about down the line.
Yeah, because I mean, to the Tarantino point, all of his movies are in the same universe, except for Kill Bill and Death Proof, which are movies within his universe. And so that's so weird. Like, maybe it's that universal thing that I like to follow with stuff, like that building a world thing.
Yeah.
It's strange how it all works together.
Yeah, because you said you're in a Star Trek mood right now, and Star Trek's definitely got that. Star Wars has definitely got that, where it's less about the individual stories, and it's more about how much it fits into a particular era, and I can't think of Knights of the Old Republic without thinking about the Great Sith War and the Mandalorian Wars and Exar Kun and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because, like, it's been a while now, but, like, Haley and I watched through almost all of Criminal Minds, or at least almost all of it that's on Netflix, right?
Right.
We watched through 9 seasons of that show, and we get to where there's only 2 episodes left, and I just couldn't do it anymore.
Did you get
only 2 episodes. Only 2 episodes. I'm just like, fuck it, I just don't care anymore. Because, like, while I was watching that, I was like, man, I could really see this turning into a Law and Order if they'd actually stuck with some of the stuff I thought they were doing at that point. Because, like, what that show was doing was talking about how people just can't stay in the BAU for too long because it just gets overwhelming, and so people are constantly leaving, and they're constantly bringing in all these new characters. The thing is, people wouldn't stay gone. They'd come back like a season later, and it just made their goodbye complete shit, which is one of the reasons I gave up on that show. But I mean, I was in a mood to watch that kind of thing for so long, to the point where I was only 2 episodes away from finishing it. I just couldn't make myself do it.
I've had the exact same thing with Walking Dead. I watched 4 seasons of that at once, and I couldn't get to the season finale of 5 because I just didn't care anymore. It just got so bad that I couldn't force myself to just watch another 40 minutes of it.
Yeah, it's so weird how that happens, and like I think there really is something to that. To the line between being in a mood for something and having to do something.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think I do my best philosophizing when it's something that's just in my head, because I have this a little bit with philosophy too, when I just have a certain, like, thought process in my head, and I go do research on it and look into this, that, and the other thing, and I'm like, okay, and I read this writer's work and blah, 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 and then I think I'll pull my best conclusions when I'm in that mood. But then when I was taking a class and I had to read this guy's stuff, I was just like, I just don't want to do this. And I would find myself just disagreeing because I was having to do it.
The line between just work and pleasure, especially when you study something you love.
Mm-hmm. It's so weird how that all works together, and like, I don't know, like, I wish I had some research on, like, the science behind this, because I think it could be fascinating to, like, see if there's something going on in your brain that's different when you're in a mood for something as opposed to when you're not.
I'm sure there has to be somebody doing that kind of research somewhere, because it's almost like a universal phenomenon. I think everyone's got that to a point where...
it's like, it's interesting to go from phenomenology to science sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, you know, phenomenology is the most non-scientific thing, but it also points out some, like, really interesting behaviors that people never really pick up on until you, like, you know, everyone does it, but no one says anything. Like, I guarantee there's got to be someone that has done research on when you're walking down a hallway and someone else is walking down the same hallway, and, like, you kind of meet in the middle, and neither of you knows which way the other's going to go, so, you kind of do, like, a little dance for a second. Before you finally, like, both pick a opposite direction and then go. Someone has to be doing research on why we do that.
Yeah, because there's so many opportunities to change direction and no one does it.
Exactly. It's like such a universal thing. I think everyone has done that throughout history, probably, and just no one thinks about it.
See, part of my problem with Spielberg's Lincoln film is that Lincoln never had to deal with that. And that's just not realistic enough for me.
Wait, with like, walking down a hallway?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my bad, man. No, it's one of those things, it's just like, that's gotta be going on for, like, there's little things like that where I wonder, like, wait, is anyone doing research on what's going on in our heads when we're doing these very specific, somewhat universal things?
And, I mean, to bring it back to the mood thing, do you ever feel like... Because I think a lot of people have this, where you consume a great deal of something for so long, and then when you look back on it, you wonder, how the hell did I read all of that at once, or watch all of that at once?
Yeah, and it's weird, because so little of it sticks with me sometimes, I notice. Like, what did I watch through? Where I just, like, I had a lot of ideas on it at the time. Maybe it was White Collar. Cause yeah, I remember I watched through White Collar at one point when there were only like 3 seasons of it available. Even before I had Netflix, it was on demand. I watched through the first 3 seasons, and I only vaguely remembered it by the time I decided to rewatch it on Netflix. Like, I remembered the submarine, and that was about it.
Weird.
Yeah, like, I'd watched through all of it, and it was only, like, maybe a year or 2 later that I decided to go back to it, and none of it stuck for me.
I think part of the problem is just the show, because I've rewatched that show, like, 2 or 3 times, and even now I can't remember anything except very vague moments.
Yeah, I don't know, because, like, I look at my comic shelf, and, like, I loved Grant Morrison's Justice League when I read it, and I remember, like, the inception of it and everything, and I can remember, like, vague details here and there and moments from it, but I don't remember what most of the story arcs are about.
Okay, well, that's interesting, because I don't think I really have that. Because I feel like I can tell you almost issue for issue what happened with certain books I read, and I read like 800 comics over the summer, so I guess that's something.
Maybe you just have a better memory than me.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know, because, like, maybe I could pick up a book and, like, just look at it and remember, but, like, I remember reading through No Man's Land, and I've got that sitting on my shelf because I want to go back to it eventually whenever I get Cataclysm, so I can start all over. But I don't remember a ton of, like, I remember some moments here and there from it, but I don't remember a ton about what exactly was going on in that book.
Well, do you structure your reading at all, or no?
What do you mean by structure? Like, plan it out and everything?
Yeah, like, when I want to read, even if it's a big chunk or a small chunk of anything, I've got this system of how I would read it and when I'd read what and how many things I'd read before.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Same thing with watching. It's like, okay, I'm going to do a thing and I'm going to watch through it while I'm doing this other thing too. Because I can multitask like that, pay enough attention.
Okay, that makes sense, because whenever I read something, I always have like a very thickly defined list of how the reading would go.
Okay. And, like, I don't know, I feel like I could... Because when I'm placing comics, I'm like, okay, this happens before this, I remember this, that, and the other thing. So, like, because I organize my comics by continuity like you do,
right.
At least I was until I ran out of room in my box, and I was like, fuck it. And I just started stuffing in random spots so I could piss off future Ian. I'm gonna open that box in like 2 weeks here and be like, what the fuck, dude? Couldn't you have just left it out? Did you really need to clean the whole apartment? Did you really? Couldn't you have just left it all over the floor?
Man, past Ian was a dick.
Oh, past Ian is like the biggest dick, and then future Ian's just a condescending asshole that doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, present Ian is where it's at.
That's right, man. President Ian's a nice, mellow dude. That was my remark on like Doctor Who crossovers. Because when you really think about it, would you get along with your past self? Probably not. That guy was a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, why didn't you do this really... Dude, like, past Ian, why didn't you brush your teeth when you were in middle school more often? Look at this shit that I have to deal with now. The fuck, man? I don't know, we're getting further and further away. Is there anything else you can think of that you want to say about getting into a mood, though?
I think the last really quick thing I want to mention is the moods are really sporadic. Like, there's never, like, a defined moment or inception where I can say, because I saw this thing, I am now perpetually in the mood for this.
Yeah, it's weird because I was talking to Alex the other day, and I'd mentioned Zorro, and he's like, I mentioned that I've been in a big Zorro mood the last couple of months, and he goes, what started that? And I had to think about it for a second, and I think when I really kind of delve into my thinking and what gets me into a certain thing, I can piece it together, because it's usually a lot of little things. Like,
right.
For me with Zorro, what I think initially kicked it off was Alex on Twitter talking about, like, Revolution and stuff, combined with just thinking about Zorro in relation to Batman at one point. And then I watched Mask of Zorro, and that's really what kicked it off, and I started watching all these other things, and I did that video with Bill. And then as I got more introspective about it, and I sent this out on Twitter today, I think what's also getting me into it is my dad loved Westerns, and I never really got into them.
Oh, okay.
And so watching Zorro is, in some way, I think, I wish he were around so I could watch it with him, because he would love it. And so, like, I think it's just little bits like that just all kind of come together. And so I can actually, it's not one specific thing, like someone said this and that made me want to go watch Green Lantern, the animated series, but, like, I think I can piece together little things that lead up to me getting into a mood for stuff.
Yeah, because there's definitely a trail to what defines a mood, but it's not necessarily the same kind of trail all the time. Like, it's not... With Iron Man, it was a really long process of me hearing things before I finally picked up a comic. But then with something else like Captain America, it's literally just a spark. These two things just aligned really quickly, and now I'm in a Captain America mood.
Yeah.
And it's never consistent. Like, sometimes I want to force myself into a mood for something just because I want to read one particular story, but I refuse to read it out of context. And it doesn't always work that way. It almost never works that way.
Yeah, it's a weird idea, and I think a lot of people go through this. Again, phenomenology. You just get into this certain way of thinking, and you're suddenly, this is the perfect property for you now. And so it's always weird to get it, to find yourself just, I'm in a mood for this, or I'm in a mood to do this or that, or whatever. And it's not just with media, I feel like I should mention, because I compared it to food earlier, and I think that's the most direct comparison I can make. But I mean, I think people get into moods for like what kind of clothing they want to wear for a while, or you know, what kind of, how they want to work out, or what sport they want to play for a while. If they do like a sport for exercise kind of thing. I think people get into just moods of how they do things, and it's really interesting part of human nature to me. And I think it's most apparent because we're geeks with the media and stuff we consume.
Yeah, because not everyone consciously thinks about it, I think, the way we are right now, but it's such a universal experience. Like, how many times have you run into a person and they're just obsessed with a thing and they don't question it?
Yeah, I mean, like, everyone gets into, you know, their favorite band, and they buy the t-shirts and all the CDs, and they look up, you know, are they going to be playing anywhere near me and stuff. That happens constantly. Like, everyone is into Taylor Swift right now, and I don't know why, but they are.
Because they're wrong, but anyway.
What?
No, I just said because they're wrong.
Yeah, they are wrong. But yeah, it's so weird how it's just like this fundamental thing that goes on in our heads, and no one addresses it.
I mean, it's as simple as, like, look at the history of healthy behavior and exercise kicks in the U.S. and how they start and how they die and how consistent they are. It's basically the same thing.
Oh yeah, you remember like the Atkins diet? Like, places were advertising that their menu fit the Atkins diet.
Yeah, exactly that.
Like, people just the fad kind of thing, like especially with collectibles, the fucking Beanie Babies, the Beanie Baby bubble.
Yeah, the Beanie Baby bubble, the new whole pop figure thing that's becoming an obsession among people.
Yeah, I don't like those things. They're too cutesy.
I've got one that Cap sent me, which is Angel, and I really like that one, but I'm never buying any more.
Haley's got a couple of Wonder Woman, Daenerys, and Ariel, and they're just not my thing. Like, I like Legos, they're cool, but that's about the furthest away from, you know, physically accurate characters that I want. And Legos is just because you can build all the stuff around it that makes it awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a universe to that stuff.
Yeah. But it's like I got in a Lego mood for a while too, and I'm planning to get back to Lego videos for people. I just need to buy a shelf, because otherwise they're just sitting all over the goddamn place, and I don't want to be that guy. Anyway, I think that'll about do it. But it's such a weird topic, and we can go in a million places with this, I think.
Yeah, this conversation didn't really have like a strict structure to it, and I think that just illustrates the point, which is that this is a hard thing to explain, but it's there, and it leads you into 100 different other human behavioral areas.
Yeah, you kind of are grasping at smoke when you're doing this.
Yeah.
Because like there's clearly something there, and you can kind of sort of get your head around it, but it's so vague, and it has so many facets and other things that you kind of have to talk more around it than directly about it.
Yeah.
But I hope people enjoyed this, and I hope that they understood what we were talking about. What if it's just you and I, Steve?
What if
it
say,
turns
oh my
out,
god.
Yeah, what if it turns out that no one else has this? They watch like one movie and that's it, and then move on, and like we're the only ones.
The old man will be ostracized from the internet community, and
Yeah, I know. We'll have to like live in tents.
I know it's gonna be so painful because people will send us messages saying how crazy we are, and we can't just ignore them or hit delete.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, everyone, thank you for listening to this, though. Steve, it's always fun to do specials with you.
Yeah. This wasn't exactly a mini at this point, was it?
No, I didn't think we'd have that much to say about
Neither
it.
did I.
But I was wrong. Well, anyway, Milan, fuck you for not making it.
Tonight. You bookend this.
Yeah, you gotta have some continuity. Anyway, everyone, thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm the philosopher.
I'm the politician.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.